How's it going, everyone? This is Anon. None of this is financial advice. This is for entertainment purposes only. Alright, so we had a really interesting, rough day. What's up, Andrew? How's it going, man? I was going to say, we had an interesting day today. SPY gap down from 415 pre-market all the way down to opened at like 400 and continued down to a low of 391 today. So yeah, like that's a weird day. That's a big move. Like, I mean, pre-market it was 415, and it had literally bounced off this line that I drew out before, and then gapped down all the way to 400. I mean, it was like a 2% drop pre-market. And then it continued down another like 4%. That's a huge swing. That's like $1 trillion something dollars, like swing the other way. Yeah, I mean it's not pretty at all. It wasn't for anything. Like my entire portfolio was just red. I had only the stuff that I bought for puts. Those were the only ones that I had. So. What's going on, guys? So we got Spooner in here, VNS, Earthium, Valgene. It says we only have 3 in here, though. That's weird. There's 5 people writing, but only... Huh. That's weird. Anyway, what's going on, guys? You guys want to talk about this? Yes is here. What's going on, buddy? Yeah, so it was just showing basically this large gap. So I don't know if people were watching pre-market. I think if I probably put it up on the, let's put it up on the 15-minute. So it literally had gotten up to the 415 mark and gotten really close to this line that I drew out, the purple line. That's been a support and resistance line. And then it proceeded to literally tank 2%, which is a huge move pre-market, and then continue down. So here's what I can tell you. That was a huge swing, and it's really going to depend on what the other world markets are going to do. Yeah, so like... The other world markets are open right now, so I guess we could take a look at them real quick. What are you doing online at this time? I got a late start. My wife was out at dinner. She was out with clients. We got a whole bunch of stuff. Kids were up late, and we had a whole bunch going on. But anyway, it's fine. I don't mind. I just mainly came on to just talk about kind of the SPY and, the VIX should be moving up because, do you guys know how, like, the VIX works? Like, I know everyone, like, it tracks volatility, right? But, what is it actually, right? So, let's see if we can pull up... just for you guys. I mean, if you guys already know, that's fine. Then I won't cover it. But here we can bring this over. All right. So when you talk about market uncertainty, right? The VIX is a measure of basically right here. Oh, you got some TZA? Nice. Yeah, so just be careful with VIX stuff because the VIX has been manipulated in the past. For anyone that's not familiar, yeah, some people call it the fear index. It's a measure of how many puts, I think, if I remember correctly. It's VIX is a measure of puts on this. Simply put, the VIX measures the expectation of the stock market volatility as communicated by options prices. So they're basically taking the projected implied volatility, the IV, specifically for 30 days in the future, measuring it against the price of options. So it takes into account like the amount of puts that are on the market and all sorts of things. So like, my point is that in the past, if you look up like VIX manipulation, there's been a huge amount of like people have done this. So like, I think there's been a couple people that actually, let's see, there was, I know some people got fined for it, for literally manipulating the VIX. Not the first time. Because if you understand how the VIX works, you actually could technically change the equation by changing the options. So if you had enough money, you can literally manipulate the VIX. So in the past, it's happened before, and somebody got fined for it recently. But like, yeah, I'm just fines, because I know someone recently got fined for it. Yeah, so like the SEC order finds that the S&P VIX short terms index has agreed to cease and desist and pay $9 million for a penalty. Like there's so much corruption on the market. Like it's not great. Yeah, trading firm fined, for VIX misconduct. That like it just. And they do this across everything. Like that's the unfortunate thing is like we're not in a. It's not like this was a well-regulated market. People think that they're like, oh, well, the SEC's there. Well, the SEC doesn't do anything. There's a reason why Elon like came out was like, F the SEC. They don't do anything. I don't have respect for the SEC. Like. Because when you sit there and go, how could they let all this stuff happen? I mean, it's kind of amazing. They're just like, yeah, we'll just, Now, I did see something interesting. There was a good amount of volume at the end of the day. I just want to point this out, right? So in the last couple of minutes of the day, there was a good spike of volume on this bar, right? So I just want to point that out. There's been very little volume moving this SPY up recently, which means that there's a lot of money sitting on the sidelines right now. So as the big players are kind of like messing around and like, let me take it off the 15. Let me put it more on the 4 hour. I just want to show you guys like, so this is the most recent history, right? There's 477, there's 360, right? Yes, we did fill the gap on ATER. So I think it was at 236 was the gap, like 235, 236. We filled it today. So, but I just want to point this out. So look at back here. You were trading close to 100 million shares. Well, look at what they're doing. Like, and if you go back even further than this, if we go back on the like daily chart. Look at like, all right, so there's tons of volume here when it was the COVID, right? That was COVID, everything went down, we got down to 2 something, and then this market has just been pumping, right? So if you look though, some of these like major events where they have more volume are basically around support and resistance lines, and then they break through. So like that's where a lot of the volume comes from, right? But if you take a step back, right? So I showed you guys in the past here, there was gaps down here that I think are going to fill at some point in the 360s. I think we're not even there yet, but I was pointing out this is this major important line that I was pointing out to you guys before with the 415 line. And if you kind of look back, all right, so look here. It almost bounced off here, came up, broke through there, pushed up, bounced, was pushed up, bounced. They finally broke through, couldn't get it to go down, bulls came back and pushed it up, and finally bears took control, pushed it down. They came back up, used one of these fib lines, and then basically came down to this, what was that, about 380. Got pushed back up once again. Look where it's going to, the 415 line, right? This has been an important thing. And then this is where it gapped down all those days, right? So we had some gaps here, major down. This was the low. So then from there, it started recovering. We had a lot more. But look at the volume. The volume pushing it back up has been a lot lower than the selling that was occurring when those major down days. So I'm kind of pointing this out that I don't trust this, quote unquote rally that we're seeing here, because if you look, the majority of the days, they're pretty red. Like, they finally got some people to buy back into the market, right? And then they finally, when you see they're selling hard and fast, and they're not messing around, right? So now this is a gap, and this will fill at some point, Whenever you see large gaps like that, they do fill at some point. So I'm not going to be surprised if this thing yo-yos. It goes down to a certain level and then head fakes people out. Like, we may even see like a giant run at some point, just because, they could push it down, get the bears, because, the bears have been chomping at the bit, right? So they keep seeing like, okay, there's nothing good going on. And I just want to point this out. So if you guys remember, I was pointing out to everyone a couple of weeks ago about, I believe it was, I think it was on Fintel, that it looked like a bunch of smart money, the hedge funds, were actually net short. And if you take a look at Fintel, I can see if anything's been updated, but shorts, the big shorts. Okay, if you look, right, at the biggest shorts right now, there's a put value of like $11 billion on, so they're net short basically like $11 billion on the Qs, right? And Citadel is almost $10 billion net short on the SPY. Right? IMC, these are all large, like, they're shorting the SPY. And the Russell. Barclays is shorting the Russell, which is, what Ethereum's in. Small caps. For anyone that's not familiar. But look at all these. All these hedge funds are all shorting the market. And part of me is like, okay, they're right as far as like, I do think the economy is in a rough place, so there's one of two things happening right now, right? This run is either, so say they closed out some of their positions, right? They closed them out, and then they went net short back up here, right? So the question is, or I don't know if we don't see an update, the 13Fs take a while to come through. So we haven't seen every, some of these might be older positions. They might have already closed them. They might have re-entered them. We get, snapshots, basically. We don't get live information. So just so everyone's aware of that. So check this out, right? One of two things is happening. Either they were pushing it up because they were closing out and getting squeezed, like these short hedge funds, like the Citadels, the IMCs, the CTCs, the Barclays, Wolverine, all those like hedge funds, Deer Park, Citigroup. Citigroup's more of an institution, but anyway, these are large positions that they're net short on, and I do think they're correct in the they know that the economy is in trouble, but just like anyone, they can get squeezed also if, say, for example, a BlackRock, a Vanguard, some big institution just keeps buying shares and won't let the stock go down. That can be bad also. So I know people are like, oh, well, when the stock market crashes, it's going to, send all these hedgies, screaming and run. Like, most of the hedge funds are short. So it's actually advantageous for them for the SPY to go down because they're the ones going to make the most money on that. They got $10 billion positions on, the SPY or the Qs. Like, and yes, they are overvalued. So, I mean, like, I hate hedge funds, but at the same time, at least they are looking at it correctly, in my opinion. Like, they at least saw the writing on the wall, which is the large caps have been basically where everyone's been storing their money in, and they're still a bit bloated, right? So, like, small caps have been beat down, mid caps have been beaten down, but, like, the large caps are still relatively, like, if you look at, like, their earnings and their, like, sales, and if you do some math on it and you do some equations, you'll realize pretty quickly that they're still really, really they're doing many multiples of their, sales, and it's at unhealthy levels, in my opinion. So I think they're still a bit bloated, So what do you see now, right? So, what could happen is they could be going down pretty aggressively. You could double bottom and then see a run back up. They may just be in this channel for a while, kind of like Wyckoff style. Like, this is them, they'll pump up on low volume, sell large portions of their position before the ultimate crash. Or it could go the other way, which is if they really are net short and getting squeezed by these longs, eventually it could pop aggressively the other way and just run. But I have a trouble seeing where that could be, because it just seems so unlikely at this point that, like, I mean, inflation, and this is why it almost feels like it's probably not like like they seem to just do whatever the opposite of what's common sense. So what's going to crash? What's it going to crash it? Well, I mean, the immediate levels that I had marked out is the 460s, and that came from back, I think. I got to zoom out. So right down here, these like 320s levels, but if I do this right here, there were gaps that formed in the like 340s, 350s. So there were some gaps here in the 360s. So that's what I have marked out. I thought that's probably the easiest target is like the 360s for now. So, I bought some like 350 puts for next year. And, at this point, I think they're still like 25% down. But, that's because I bought them probably closer to when the stock was down here. And then we had that run up to like 420. And then now we're back down to the below fours. Can the market makers just burn the shorts? So it depends on what you're talking about. So, like, if you're talking about Ethereum, then no. Well, I take that back. The market makers and the shorts usually are in alignment, which is the market makers, their only concern, and say you're dealing with like a small cap like Ethereum, right? You're looking at them going, okay, well, these guys don't even have to try that hard, and they can just basically control the price. I mean, they can do it to pretty much all these small caps. And if you, here, let me just put it in perspective to you. The reason why small caps typically are manipulated as much as they are is because of this. Let's look up ATER real quick. Just as a quick little lesson, right? So if we sit here and take a look at ATER's short position, right? So let's hypothetically say that, yes, this is correct, and they do have, let's even call it like, 6 million, right? So that one came out on what? The 13th. It was settlement date of the end of August. So hypothetically, let's say we'll just call it like 5.7 to 6 million, right? Shares, right? According to this, that's only $15 million. I was just reading, you guys. You're going to go in on SPY puts at open. It's going to make it go green for you guys. It's kind of what it feels like, right? So when everyone pivots and goes, all right, well, I guess we're going down now, everyone piles in on the puts, and then they just burn them. So just be careful of that. I know you're joking probably, but like probably they go down halfway through the day and then just fly up for no reason, because that's what they do, right? So anyway, I'm just pointing this out, right? So the short interest value is only $15 million. Earthium. Oh, referring to SPY? Well, not really, because if you think about like that for the, if we're talking about the SPY, right? For them to short it, it means they sell short, or it depends. They have some of them that are shorting it. Other ones are literally just buying puts, like billions of dollars worth of puts. Yeah, futures are up right now too. So we'll see. I mean, this is a large gap, so it wouldn't shock me to see tomorrow it push back up. Like, that would not shock me at all. It's coming through. All right, so, but yeah, that was a good, pretty solid bar of selling that happened today. Yeah, I mean, and that's what they'll do. Like, this is how they make their money, right? So because SPY trades 3 options a week typically, you've got 3 times each week there's millions and millions of people playing the SPY, including retail investors, day traders, swing traders. They're all playing it, right? It's one of the, there's a lot of volume. So what happens, right? Do they go through and they see everyone buying puts? So what do? They'll just, the market makers and the big guys, they'll just push the price back up. Why? Because right now there's not a ton of conviction either way. You can tell that by the volume. Like, today was decent volume compared to the past, but like, we're still not getting like the 200 millions, like that. Those are days that I think are important to the the SPY. Basically, anything above like this line, basically, you're looking at like pretty important days. Like, this was a huge, little thing here where you saw a spike in volume trying to push it back up from these lows. Bears tried pushing it down hard. Bulls came back and gained control back. Bears tried it again, bounced off the 211, broke through back up, and so yeah, so today could obviously be an overreaction. There's a large gap for it to fill above, so you never know. But going back to my point is, when do shorts lose control? The problem is with the Tyrion and other small caps. I mean, if you look at the short interest value, $15 million to these large hedge funds is nothing. It's chump change. Like, they could keep that open forever. Like, they don't mind paying even like the 20-30% borrow fees, because on $15 million, it's not that much, right? If you look at other ones that have been shorted into oblivion, let's look at BBIG, right? Vinco, their short position is $40 million. That's still not that much compared to, all these other ones. And they're about the same as far as, they're just free floats, just much, much bigger. Because their shares outstanding is like, much bigger than the Tyrions. What else has been really shorted? APRN, right? APRN's been like really, really nailed down. Now, they're a little bit bigger, right? Their market cap's still pretty small in relative things, but I feel like, yeah, so see them, they're close to 40 million, but that's on a small float that's being locked up. So this is an interesting one right here. Like, this could be one of those that catches fire. It all depends, though, on what happens with management and insiders. If they keep messing around with it and keep, tightening up, buying up shares, this is going to be one of those like, probably shouldn't have shorted this as much as we did. Or it can go the other way where they need cash and they ended up using, and that's what the shorts have been banking on, is like them doing some sort of offering. So, but yeah, when you have these small caps, now compare that to like a GameStop, right? So GameStop, if you look at the short interest against them, it's like $1.6 billion, and they're paying like 11% on that. Like that's a lot of money. Like those are the ones that get dangerous for them. That's how some people get margin called, right? So, okay, PEI. Okay, let me take a look for you real quick. I'll do a quick. I appreciate the tip. Thank you, Mr. Rad. I will do a quick little snapshot and take a look for you. All right. So, what is the news for them? Transformation. Some sort of Moortown Mall, community commitment. All right, so let's take a look. So utilization's 100%. Let's see how long it's been like that. All right, so it's been like that for a while. So that means there's not a ton of shares. The cost to borrow has been rising, kind of settled out now near this 10. Let's see. The short interest has kind of been stagnant, it looks like. Days of cover's down up to 24. So this thing's getting it's not getting a ton of volume, it looks like, right? Volume's kind of dead. It was up 100% 3 weeks ago. Yeah, I saw that spike up here. Are you long on them? Well, tell me, I guess what was your reason getting into this, and let me go ahead and keep looking because I need to go into Dilution Tracker and a couple other things while we're doing this. But I'm just curious, were you just looking at it as like a squeeze play, or was it like a... All right. So off the bat, the company has a cash flow positive, and they have, based on quarterly operation, cash flow of 15 point... Okay, so they have cash flow positive. That's good. They have a shelf that's registered, pretty large size, but at this point right now, they don't really... Doesn't look like they need it. Let's take a look. Nobody's in on it, so that's interesting. So institutions only own 1% of this thing. Let's take a look at the filings. So we got these preferred shares. Interesting. Okay. So they're all trading under different things. All right. So investments in real estate. That's fine. Accumulated depreciation. Other assets. All right, so total assets gone down slightly. It looks like so has their liabilities. Total liabilities. So they're basically like even. But they also have these preferred shares, but there's not a ton of them now that I'm looking at it. They authorized 25,000 here, 25,000 here. That's nothing. And they have a small float, so that shouldn't affect it too much. I got in at 405, sort of a squeeze play, but I've gotten interested based off their stats. Feel if they can survive the next few, and the preferred shares, there's something here. The preferred shares are small. It's not like that. Yeah, granted, 25,000, 25,000, 25,000. You're adding up to, quickly to basically, it's a little bit under 100,000. But, yeah, on a small float, that does mean something, but for the most part, that's not that big of a deal. Lease revenue went down somewhat over the last 3 months, but it's over the last 3 months. Sorry, the 6 months it's higher. So, I mean, their expenses haven't gone up that much from where it was previously. So, yeah, I mean, like, so this would be like one of those that, like, if it got volume, it could do something, because this float's so small on this type of stock that, like, even just the slightest bit of volume usually sends it probably flying. Let's take a look. Like, what kind of volume they be getting? All right, so volume basically had spiked here, right, when it ran up to almost 8. Try it again here. My guess would be retail was probably in on that because they saw these large moves. So there's a gap here already. So this thing gapped down just like the other one. So here's what I would be interested in seeing what it does tomorrow. And let's take a look at something else. Let me see if we can figure out. All right. Yeah, so this one could be interesting. I mean, the biggest thing is, all right, so there's certain stocks that, like, if they got any sort of volume, they'd fly. For a while, Ethereum was one of them. All right, so what's your average? Like, obviously, I'm not a professional, so I'm not going to give you stock advice, but I can at least I'll just explain to you what I'm seeing. And, you know, if you do your own thing, or you know, but, like, so I'll tell you the goods and the bads, what I see. So something that's not great is that institutions are not really in on this thing, right? So, you know, if you go to their holdings, they're owned by less than 1% of institutions, right? So that's not like a great stat, right? Because, like, I mean, hell, like, Ethereum, for all its problems, still has 17% institutional ownership. BBIG, for all its problems, still has basically 17% owner. You know, like, the fact that it's 1% is a little bit like, okay, so if nobody's touching this thing, why is that, right? So that would be one thing to look at. Overall, though, when you take a look, though, like, while it has a large shelf, it doesn't need cash immediately, is what it looks like, right? So, you know, if you're long on them and you can see, like, they've got a tiny float. Like, if you look here, like, at some point, so say you bought in, what was your average? Four-ish to be, sorry. You got in at, like, 405. Okay. So what's the stock price now? It's like 390. How much? Like, I won't get too personal, but, like, you know, are we talking about, like, is it tying up a lot of your, like, capital, or is it fine for you to just let, like, some of it hang out? Because, like, what I can tell you from just by looking at the charts, hold on. Just by looking at the chart, let's zoom out a little bit. Right, so it looks right here that you had a double bottom, like almost a double bottom here-ish. And could it come back down and do that again? Sure. Like, that could happen. But, you know, for the most part, this thing's been kind of like a falling knife down to these levels. And at some point, usually when they get pushed down like this, like over and over and over again, they spring. Right, so, like, you had a spring here after earnings. You know, you had earnings here, kind of just, you know, did nothing. Earnings did nothing, went a little bit higher here. mean, that's 51, right? Is that right? So like that's pretty high. But the reason why they're able to get that high is because their shares are like outstanding are so low. If you look here, how many shares are outstanding? Shares outstanding, there's only 5 million shares, right? Yeah, so just here's what I'm looking at. You got a free float of basically 4 million shares. It's tiny. But you also don't have institutional ownership, right? So August 10th, this King came out with a short squeeze buy. It's got, it's got some short interest, obviously, like 20%. So, like, this thing could squeeze. And so if I was looking at this, I would say I would try to average down on the lowest days personally. That's like what I would do. And I don't think I would sell for a loss at this point if this is, hold on. Okay. Okay, so like if your average is around now, I don't think that you have anything to worry about short term, because like if we saw like this thing had like, a dilution shelf that was raring to go and an active ATM and they needed cash immediately, then that would be obviously very troublesome. They don't really need the cash at this point. So if you look, they haven't really diluted too much over their course so far. Like yeah, I mean, at this point right now, it's one of those things that you could just see explode at some point if they get volume. But there's a lot of stuff that like never gets the light of day, because like look at this. Like if we go to like Reddit, right? So if we go to Reddit and we typed in, PI or PEI, right? Philadelphia. Let's see. I'm just curious to see. So they've got communities, maybe. Prince Edward Island. I don't know what these things are. Do they even have a like subreddit that's focusing on the stock? I don't see one. So like, yeah, let's see if anyone posts. Seems like everything's about Prince Edward's Island. Like it doesn't have a huge, Yeah. So, I mean, I've seen it mentioned a couple times on Short Squeeze, but not like a ton. So, like, it's not super well known. Well, yeah, the 1%, institutional ownership, it's not a well known stock. That's what it looks like. And if it makes you feel better, I'm in on DTC. I like that stock, and nobody talks about it. Nobody's doing much about it. Like it's not getting much volume. Like I'll just point this out. Like I talked about it last night, but it's one of those stocks that just like at this point, for whatever reason, retail hasn't really clung on to, and it's been trading like nothing. Like we're talking about like a couple 100,000 a share, like 300,000 shares, 400,000 shares, like. Couple of days it was like just tiny volume. So yeah, I mean, like it held up pretty, you gotta say, for the SPY going down 4%, it held its own today. Like It's still an uptrend right now, so like I can't complain. But yeah, for whatever reason, the stock just never gets, a ton of volume. And maybe at some point, it will, but at this point right now, it's not. So don't feel bad about like holding, Yeah, you've got holdings on DTC, ATER as well. Good stuff, yeah. So what I can tell you for that PEI, I would just personally just wait and take a look at it. Like I would monitor it, and I would just see. What is that? Sorry, there's like something on my leg. I got bit by a spider or something. Yeah, from my readings with you and the group. Yeah, I was gonna say. So, yeah, I'll keep an eye also. That's a tiny float. It's kind of like there's another stock that I think it was called DST, maybe. Is it DST? No. DTST? Is it this one? Yeah, these guys. So DTST, right? This is an interesting one too. See these kind of random things here, like these spikes? Super random, right? Like it just was trading around like 5 and then just ran all the way up to like 28. Ran up to 38. Why? Like seriously, why do you think that would be? DTST. So you're right here. Not a ton of short interest. Institutions only own about 10%. But look, they got tons of cash. They got years worth of, based. It's just an interesting thing, right? So like, this stock has a float of 4 million, right? Tiny, right? So why did it move that aggressively, right? It's because it's got a tiny float. So if anything squeezed it, like it's a halfway decent company. So like, it just when you have a tiny float like that, if somebody wants to run up on you and make some money, it can happen. So it may do that at some point for PE or PEI. You might have a Will Eden of the world just come through and be like, hey, look at this stock. It looks interesting. And then like hundreds of thousands of day traders just start trading the stock and it just flies up. Like that's what happens on those tiny like small caps. And then they get a bunch of new people who don't really understand. They're like, why is this stock running? I guess I'll buy. And they're buying at the very tops of charts. And, they're the guys buying up here. And then all of a sudden the stock drops and goes down and down and down. And finally they're like, oh, my God, this thing sucks. And then it keeps going down and down and down. And then it ends up being like here at 9. They bought it at 28. They sell, right? And then, oh, my God, what happened? So they had this large gap down, filled, right? So it filled here, back down. Like these stocks just chop around, especially with the ones with small floats, right? So gap up, filled the gap, looks like, right? Gap was sitting there at 233, and it filled over here. So. Yeah, Dirty looks at all the tickers. He does a scanner. All right, AVCT. But yeah, just so you know, Mr. Rad, I personally would like, if I was buying and selling, and I had an average around where the stock is, I would just hang out. Wouldn't do anything knee jerk. Nothing looks like a fire right now on that one. So if you're patient, you probably can make some money on it. Because somebody at some point will probably notice it and go, well, I haven't seen this thing move up in a while. Boom. And all right. What time is it? Oh, pushing towards midnight now. Okay, I'll do a couple more, but okay. So AVCT, we talked about this one before, I think. AVCT, American Cloud, Virtual Cloud Technologies. I think we explained that this one had, let's see, they've got convertible notes and warrants, a good amount of them. And they're running out of cash. So they've got these SPAC warrants at 11. Wow, that's pretty far away. Though they just registered, look at this, 25 million at 15 cents. Ugh. That's not good. They already had notes convertible here, fully ratcheted. So, yeah, I don't know. They already did an ATM right there. They've used up most of their shelf, though, but this is a bit worrisome with these getting registered, because as soon as they register, it's going to be, stock right now is trading at 20 cents. So they're already over the warrant price, and they've got to get their stock up above $1 soon. So, but the only way so what you're going to see is you're going to see them push it up to basically try to get those warrants unlocked. So, because they want to unlock those warrants probably. Tough built. Let's take a look. It's been a while since anyone has asked me about that one. I told you guys about the dilution. Everyone thought I was just shilling, but I'm like, listen, I'm not. All right, so did they fill this gap? Because I told people, I'm like, watch this gap. Like, they didn't fill it either time. Like, didn't fill the gap here. They didn't fill this gap here. They're coming down. They probably filled it. Let's see. What line is this? What happened? Do I have to zoom out maybe? Yeah, they still haven't even finished filling this gap down here. So I would be wary on Tough Belt. I think the dilution will push it down into this price range. So yeah, be careful of that. You know, where is the dilution tracker? Here. So just so you guys can see it, overall risk is high, offering ability is medium, dilution amount, dilution amount, I can't remember. It's just basically the shelf, like how much do they have? Historically, have they diluted in the past, and do they need cash now? And the answer on most of these is yes. So you gotta be careful of those, right? And they don't have a lot of cash left based off their cash burn, so not great. And then this is what worries me: is these 15% warrants. All right. INDO's still got a lot of stuff on, they've got running out of cash. They've got these notes convertible at $6. They already used that one, it looks like. Yeah. Wait, remaining amount. So they already used up these. Right? remaining shares to be issued when converted. So they already used up this entire. So the only ones now are, they've got these warrants at 6 and yeah, they got an ATM going right now. Oh, they have an ATM. That's why. They have an active ATM. So they can basically decide when they want to, and then they'll start issuing out this. So, yeah, I don't feel great about INDO compared to HUSA. I think HUSA's got a better shot of, if you look here, lot better fundamentals on this one. What was this one? 4% institutional ownership. HUSA's got, close to 18%, less short interest. They've already done their dilution, right? So, decent amount of cash left, not a ton of cash burn. They're in pretty good shape. So, yeah, I do think HUSA at some point when oil skyrockets, it'll probably go back up. I have some shares of HUSA as well. All right. Let me go back up and saw that Hustle. Hey, what's up, Hustle? How are you, bud? And did you see the max pain for SPY? No, let's pull it up real quick. Okay, so max pain right now, 408. We're sitting at 393 right now, if I remember correctly. Yep, so SPY right now, max pain 408. So that's quite a bit of way up. And, but like I said, I could see them running it back up to burn calls, so. Yep. And if you're new here, if you want to subscribe and like, and you're more than welcome to join us. We have a free Discord as well. Yeah, we don't charge anything for it. We just talk stocks and hang out. So everyone that listens to this is more than welcome to join us. All right. I'll put the link. Here you go. There we go. And so yeah, that would be interesting there, Hustle, if they were to push it back up just to burn. Because I could see that happening. I mean, that would make sense. Why wouldn't you want to burn all this? Right? You got all this bearishness. Just push it up to here, and you win. So, yeah, I could see it flying by the next OPEX, which I guess is tomorrow, and then Friday, right? So, all right. Well, I'm getting tired, so I will go ahead. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. They push it down, up, or up first, and then down, then probably just scream it back up. I mean, it's almost impossible to tell what they're going to try to do, because, I mean, if we all knew what they were going to do, thanks, bud. Yeah, but it would not shock me. I mean, it seems like whenever people get super bearish, they just push it back up, because it doesn't take a lot of volume, and bears are not that committed to overspending to just try to make one OPEX work. They've got longer dated puts, and they're not in a rush. But yeah, we can confirm it against some other ones, but let's see. SPY's max pain is 408 according to them as well. And Stock Ninja has probably close. They're saying 404. Yeah, and you can't always go off max pain, but this is a lot of premium to burn, right? Yeah, the yawn has arrived. We're winding down. Alright. Oh, you guys all go get good sleep, and then do like a stock market dance, and then hopefully send all the small caps to the moon tomorrow. Would just love to see small caps get their day. There's so many of them that just would I'd love to see run. Be good for those companies too. But I get some sunshine. It's not getting just beat down. But yeah, I know it's a tough run right now for a lot of people that are in small caps and even large caps. I mean, we're talking about, the SPY moved 4%. That's like $1 trillion swing. Like, that's huge. So, yeah. All right. Well, you guys have been great. Thanks for hanging out with me. And I will go ahead and see you guys tomorrow. But you guys have a wonderful evening. I'll try to get on earlier tomorrow. I'm really going to try. I know if the kids and my wife will be working, but I will try to get on and do that at least. All right. Have a good night, guys.